Welcome back to No Exceptions. My name is Matt Pandel, and we have been on a journey together over the last several weeks looking at a healthy ekklesia, a healthy church gathering, community of faith, whatever term you want to use. There's been so many abuses within the institutional church system of all stripes that it has at times repelled people from the idea of gathering, the idea of engaging in community. And so one of the things we've been attempting to do is to reimagine together, to dream together about what a healthy faith community could look like. Because what we do know is the Apostle Paul has so much to say about the nature of grace and our inherent worth in our inclusion in all that Father, Son, and Spirit are, that nature by which through his ascension Christ becomes all in all. That we can't then just disregard everything the Apostle Paul has to say about gathering. It's not a smorgasbord where you can just, like a cafeteria, go down the line and pick out the things you like and discard the things you don't like. No, 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 no. We do not have the capacity to create a religion or a faith or a form of Christianity in our own image. But we are instead being conformed into the image of Jesus Christ. He's the firstborn among many brethren, right? He is our older brother, the pattern son, who has come before us as not just an example, but the means by which we live out his life in us. For what does Galatians 2:20 tell us? We've experienced an exchange, that we live his life. In his self-emptying, his kenosis of all he is, he pulls us into himself. And we get to be participants in this divine nature. Never God, never divine in and of our own right, but participants in his divinity. That's the ascended life. That's the purpose and function of the church, is to demonstrate that to the world. To be a walking, talking example of what the kingdom of God is. That's one of the things I think we've missed in our understanding of the purpose of the church. It's not just to lead to some ultimate end of all coming to an awareness of who they are in Christ. Yes, that's important. But it's not just a means to an end, the kingdom. The church is a demonstration of that very kingdom. That while we are in fact progressing and moving forward to some end, that full awareness of what has already been accomplished, according to Ephesians, through the ascension, Christ being in and through and as all. As we move toward that goal, the church has inherent worth in and of who she is, not just by right of the direction she's going. She's not a car. The church is not just a vehicle to the kingdom. She's more than that. She is an active, living, organic demonstration of that very kingdom. At least, that's what she should be when she functions correctly. So we've looked at a variety of different traits of what this healthy faith community could look like. We've looked at authentic, that it needs to be real. It can't have pretense. It can't have delusions of its own grandeur. It can't be a means by which others are able to project their worth at your expense. But know that it is authentic and real, and that those who are there, from the leadership to those who are walking in to the gathering for the very first time, every person is free to be who they are, and that they will be loved in that state, in that awareness that they currently possess. That yes, it is a means by which of growing a person up and maturing them, but only from a place of acknowledging that they already hold worth, even if they never change. Until you know you're loved as you are, it's very difficult to believe someone or to heed their counsel as they try to help you conform into the image of the Son. You have to originate from a starting place of included, loved, valued. And from there, we can branch out into those elements of our personality, conduct, conversation that maybe have to have some sandpaper taken to those rough edges so that we look like who we already are. We looked at relational, as in not performative, but that the community is based on relationship, one with one another, spirit to spirit, that the deposit of all that the Father is, that mustard seed in me, interacts with the mustard seed in you. And it's an element of my awareness of who God is in the earth and in my life and in your life, amalgamating with your awareness of who he is. And that when 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, he is there in the midst of us. Now, what does that mean? God's everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. But there is something unique in the gathering, that when we come together, we have the assurity that because I brought him with me and you brought him with you, that he is there as the fulcrum, the keystone, the center point of everything that we experience in community. It's a beautiful thing. We've also looked at the nature of the church being organic, that it is a living thing. And because it's alive, what's the definition of something that's alive? It changes. And so we don't just haphazardly make changes to everything the church has been. No. But we retain the good and discard the harmful. We allow reforming to take place. For much of the early church into the patristic era, even the term patristic, paternal, fatherly, omits the maternal. It omits the women who were meaningful contributors to the early phase of the gospel. But in a culture that is male-dominated, women take a back seat in almost every capacity. That is an atrocity. It is a prejudice that is being set right in the modern era among the vast majority of Christian faiths. So even the most restrictive of Christian traditions still would admit we do adjust over time. The Roman Catholic Church no longer sells indulgences. That was one of Martin Luther's main grievances leading into the Reformation of the 16th century. They don't do that anymore. The Roman Catholic Church modulated. It reformed. And so certainly if Catholicism, capital C, is capable of modulating, we all are capable of modulating. The church is an organism. And so because we're still on the earth, because Christ has not yet returned in his full visible fullness, because this is still a journey, because like Paul, we are running our race, that tells me there are still things for us to learn. And so we find ourselves in that tension of moving forward and realizing that we're organic, we're alive, so things are going to change. But while also holding those elements of the faith that have bound us as an expression of Christ in the earth, going back to the very beginning of this whole thing. We looked at intersectionality in our last time together on this subject. Intersectionality meant that there is no prejudice in God, and so our faith community should reflect that. It should include the rich and the poor, the powerful and the weak, the influential and the politically irrelevant, Democrats, Republicans. To stretch it further, socialists and libertarians, the old and the young, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, every demographic should be incorporated into the faith communities. If we don't have everyone, we have no one. We are better together. And the family of faith has always understood that. And that's why there are seasons where we are parents spiritually, but only because we before were siblings and before that children. And at the very early phase, infants, entirely dependent on the community to feed us without any means of contributing anything in return. So the church is intersectional. Today, we are adding experiential to our list of traits of healthy church, healthy faith communities. So, what do I mean by experiential? There's a passage in 1 Corinthians 14:26. It's similar in every translation. I'm going to read it from the Passion and then also the First Nations translation. I just enjoy the way it phrases this. But it's 1 Corinthians 14:26. Here's what it says in the Passion. Beloved friends, what does all this imply? When you conduct your meetings, your gatherings, your church, you should always let everything be done to build up the church family. Whether you share a song of praise, a teaching, a divine revelation, or a tongue and interpretation, let each one contribute what strengthens others. Here it is in the First Nations translation. So, my sacred family members, what is the path forward? When you gather for ceremony, each one has a gift to share. Some may sing sacred songs, others might bring a teaching or tell a story. Some might share something new that has been revealed to them, while others may speak in an unknown language and then tell the meaning of it. All these things must be done in a good way to help others grow strong. I enjoy the Passion Translation uses the phrasing, let each one contribute what strengthens others. I like that word, contribute. In every season of life, there are times where we are just takers. I think of this in the nature of spiritual direction services, if that's something your faith tradition has, where these are individuals who are spiritual guides to you in your journey. They teach you incredible lessons. They help you navigate complex areas of life. And in some faith traditions, the spiritual director is not permitted to accept payment or gifts. The idea is it's an entirely one-sided commitment, a one-sided relationship that you can trust this person's guidance because they have nothing at stake. They aren't getting paid by you. They are just there for you and your benefit. And so you can trust that more easily. We all have been in those situations in life where we are just utterly, completely dependent on someone else. But we probably shouldn't stay there. The nature of an experiential faith community is that all of us have something to contribute to the well-being of the whole. I've used an analogy in the past, and it's one that probably got me more hate mail to that point in my life than any other public teaching I had done. And I made the statement that when someone comes to your house and contributes nothing, they add nothing to the framework of the family system, of the home. There's two groups of people that fall in that category. The first are visitors. When you have company over, you don't make the company help clean the dishes away. You don't have them cook. You don't say, hey, while I'm in here making the sandwiches or hoagies, whatever we're having for dinner here, why don't you go and sweep the floor for me? No, we don't do that for company. They're guests. We are there to show hospitality to them. So their contribution is not what's being weighed and measured because they're not part of the household. They're not part of the family unit. They're our guest. So that's the first kind. The other kind of person who comes into a home family situation and contributes nothing is a thief. And this is the one that got me in trouble. A thief comes into your home, steals what you have, consumes what has been entrusted to you, what you faithfully steward, and offers nothing in return. When we consistently take from faith communities, when we receive the teaching, when we receive the community, when we receive the food, the fellowship, when we take constantly but never give back, that is not healthy. We are called to all minister before the Lord. And because, as Acts 17 tells us, God's not a man that he has need of anything. How do we minister unto God? By ministering unto others. And so when you're part of something, when you've made a commitment to something, go out of your way to find ways that you can meaningfully engage that environment, contribute to what they're doing. Ask yourself, what do I have that can leave this place better than I found it? Now, because of the abuses of the tithe and mandatory giving and such of money, that has tainted our lens here a little bit. There are lots of ways to contribute. I think back to when I started at a church many years ago. It was a setting and an environment that wasn't second nature to how I was brought up in the faith to that point. And there was a lady there, she was just this sweet little old lady, and she would always come up and hug me when I would walk in the building. And it wasn't just like, a casual hug. This was she was a frail little old lady, so it really wasn't a bear hug. She didn't have the strength to a bear hug. But it was the closest this little old lady could come to giving a bear hug. And it melted me. Healing flowed into me every time I encountered her. She never gave me a dime all the years I knew her. But she gave to me each and every time I encountered her. And still does to this day when I get to encounter her. So it's not just money. I never want this to be understood as, well, this is one more thing of the church trying to get your money. We bought into a lie in that two things can be true at once. And we believe that's not possible. We've said, well, because the church has abused the monetary system, that means giving as a whole is a corrupted influence. No. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. The horrors and traumas inflicted by the tithe that never was meant to be implemented within a new covenant system. You are able to hear God. You don't need a ritualistic mathematical formula to follow because you are able to interact with the creator of the universe. He made your body his abode. He tabernacled within and among each of us. And so with that context then, we're able to say, Father, what can I give in each and every situation? That might be a listening ear. It might be money. But in my experience, more often than not, it's not money. Money becomes a hang-up because in our society and our culture, money represents something. But it can be your time. It can be your prayer. Do you know how desperately those who have been called to specifically facilitate and lead, how desperately they need your prayers? It can be your commitment. Your consistency. That your yes is yes and your no is no. It can be your willingness to forgive when they miss the mark. Part of being an experiential faith community means that we each arrive, as 1 Corinthians 14:26 told us, every time we gather, whether that's in a cathedral, in a denominational church setting, a house church, a coffee house, a Bible study in your home, or even via Zoom, wherever you gather with your faith community, you bring a contribution. You bring a word of encouragement for somebody. You bring a prophetic word, which is remarkably similar, if not identical, to a word of encouragement. You bring clarity and direction. You bring a song. You bring a teaching. But you don't come just expecting to take, but to receive. See, when you take, it's consumption based. You're taking it, consuming it, it's gone. When you receive, there's something symbiotic that takes place in us when we receive something. Without getting too graphic, I think about the nature of pregnancy. And when the female receives from the male what functionally is a deposit. Now, hang with me for a minute. I really am going somewhere with this. This took a weird turn, but stick with me. When that happens, the woman doesn't just take what was given and consume it and it's gone. It doesn't just enter the body and dissipate into nothingness. No, it makes contact with what she has to contribute to that creative miracle, the egg, and the environment for the egg to grow and mature and develop and change into the fullness of what it's capable of becoming. Taking is just consumption. It becomes nothing. But receiving results in something even more beautiful being now available to you to give back in return. When we experience faith community, and it's interesting, there's many ways to do this, and one thing as I thought back on these series of lectures, I've been concerned that maybe at times I have not drawn enough, I haven't referenced enough that there's lots of different faith traditions that are capable of living out these traits. Whether you're in a high church setting like Episcopalianism, Anglicanism, Lutheranism, or whether you are in what's known as low church, which doesn't mean good or bad, it's just formal versus very informal. You're in a house church, for example, that just you meet in a coffee shop, and there really isn't a sermon or a format or anything to it. All of these principles are applicable in every setting. So let's stop getting tripped up on the form that these should take and instead focus on the traits themselves. Do you know that if you attend the most formal of formal churches, you go into a Greek Orthodox church, there's responsive reading. There's times where the congregation responds to what the priest says. That's engagement. That is a means of contribution. It's a means of giving back, contributing to the whole. That doesn't just put it on the shoulders of a performative priest or clergy class that somehow is separate and distinct from the laity. In that First Nations translation, it said that all these things must be done in a good way to help us grow strong. One of the things we have to understand is that there's a lot of things we have settled, done, finished through the birth, the incarnation, life, death, resurrection, ascension, infilling, enduring life of Christ. You are healed, healthy, whole, delivered, set free, prosperous, lacking nothing. That is your identity. And we have opportunity every day to be conformed into that image of wholeness and health. And so we don't want to buy into the delusion of, well, because I'm healed, when symptoms arise in my body, I deny their existence. No, we don't deny their existence. That's crazy. What we do is we deny their authority. We deny their right to be there by reasserting what is true, by conforming our minds, our bodies to who Jesus says we are. When we contribute, it's to grow us strong. We want faith communities that are strong because they're healthy, because they have been safe places to grow and mature. And so I never want this to be misinterpreted as, well, this is advocating a specific style of worship. No, it's not. As time goes by, I'm adopting a consistently more liturgical expression of my faith than what I historically have had, at least in the last 20 years. But this is applicable in a house church. This is applicable everywhere. We are better together because we each bring a contribution to the equation. When we just take, but never actually receive, the egg isn't fertilized and new life isn't created. We are called to co-create with God, to participate in the divine nature. And one of the ways we do that is by living in healthy faith community, church, ekklesia, assembling, whatever we want to call it, that emphasizes experiential living. That everyone comes with something meaningful to contribute. So next time we're going to be looking at accountable. A healthy faith community is an accountable faith community. It's probably going to be the most controversial thing I've talked about on No Exceptions. So for those of you who tune in just to send me hate mail, prep yourselves because it's a coming. You will have ample cause to be irritated with me next time. But for the rest who approach this with an open mind and an open heart, my belief is we are going to see that just because accountability has been horribly misused, and we never apologize or make excuse for the atrocities of the church here on No Exceptions, we acknowledge them. We also need to realize that most of those atrocities have not been because of accountable faith communities, but because, in fact, they have been utterly unaccountable. We'll see you next time.